He was taking off when the plane crashed.
Confirming engine failure. Checklist.
He had been a commercial pilot with years of experience, preparing for a routine flight. As he started the pre-flight checks, he noticed an unusual warning light and called for maintenance. The ground crew reassured him it was minor and instructed him to continue. During takeoff, the plane lost engine power. The co-pilot tried to correct it, but the warning system had been misread and the emergency throttle lever had been left disengaged.
Stall, pull up.
Help us. Please, somebody do something.
The plane crashed shortly after lifting off. What should have been a routine flight ended in tragedy due to a single overlooked switch. It was early morning in Denver, Colorado. The sun had not fully come up yet. The sky was soft and gray, and the airport was quiet except for a few machines humming and workers moving around. Captain Daniel Mercer arrived a little earlier than his shift. He always liked to be early. He loved his job. He respected it. He believed that flying was something you should never rush or treat carelessly. 27 years of flying had taught him one thing above all: the sky never forgives carelessness. Unfortunately, he didn't know that this would be the last morning of his life. Captain Dan walked through the airport doors. The warm air inside touched his cold face. Other workers said, "Good morning," and he smiled back. Everyone liked him. He was calm, kind, and very experienced. To them, Dan was the kind of captain every pilot wanted to become: steady, patient, the man who always said, "Double-check the simple things. They're what kill people." He scanned his badge and walked to the gate for Flight 2381 to Sacramento. Just a short flight, one he had done many times, the kind he could almost fly with his eyes closed. But he never did anything with eyes closed. Nothing about the morning felt strange. Not yet. As he walked onto the long hallway leading to the plane, he noticed frost on the windows. Outside, the airplane sat quietly under bright lights. His co-pilot, Evan Walters, was already waiting inside the cockpit. Evan was young and excited about flying. Dan liked working with him. Dan touched the nose of the airplane, running his hand along the cold metal like he always did. A silent ritual, a greeting to the machine he trusted his life to. It was his little way of saying, "Let's take care of each other." Then he climbed up into the cockpit. Halfway in, he suddenly felt dizzy. His hand slipped. His knees shook. For a moment, he almost fell. But he grabbed the rail, took a deep breath, and climbed the rest of the way in. No one knew what caused that moment. Maybe tiredness, maybe a small pain in his chest. But it was the first quiet warning. A warning he never got to understand. It was a sign he never got to decipher. The cockpit lights glowed softly. Switches, gauges, LEDs, like a constellation only pilots learn to read. Evan handed him the morning briefing. Everything looked normal at first. Dan and Evan joked a little and talked about the flight. But then Captain Dan saw it. A tiny amber light blinking on the engine panel. Unsteady, irregular, wrong. His joking stopped. His smile faded. His instincts sharpened like a blade. He pointed at the light. "Call maintenance," he told Evan. "It isn't supposed to blink like that." Minutes later, a mechanic appeared at the front door, wiping oil-stained hands on a cloth as he climbed up, smelling of oil and jet fuel. Dan pointed at the warning light with a frown. The mechanic squinted, nodded, shrugged a little too casually. "Probably just a small sensor problem, Captain. Happens all the time," he said. "It should go away once the engines warm up." Dan didn't like vague words like probably, but the schedule was tight. Weather was shifting, and they were already 10 minutes behind, and the mechanic sounded confident. He watched the mechanic walk out, leaving behind only the faint smell of jet fuel and something else. Something like doubt. Evan looked at him and asked, "Should we cancel the flight?" Dan thought for a long moment. That moment was the start of the tragedy as Captain Dan resolved to continue with the flight. The engine started with a loud rumble. Passengers buckled in, sat in their seats, not knowing anything was wrong, unaware that fate had already begun writing their last chapter. From the cockpit, the airport lights drifted backward as the airplane moved backward from the gate. Outside, the sky was turning orange as the sun slowly rose over the mountains. But that strange amber warning light flickered again, though
What
dimmer.
is that?
still pulsed like a heartbeat struggling
I don't know,
to
I've
hold
never
on.
seen that before.
Dan saw it. He felt uneasy, but he trusted the mechanic's words. He trusted routine. He trusted his years of experience. And so he continued. They taxied to runway 17R. "Take off power," Dan said. Evan pushed the levers forward. The engines grew louder. The plane raced down the runway. But 15 seconds in, something was wrong. Suddenly, the left engine lost power. A loud alarm screamed inside the cockpit. "Engine 1, power loss," Evan shouted. Dan grabbed the controls. The plane started to pull to the side. The real problem was something very small but very important. It wasn't just the engine. It was the hidden truth behind that warning light. The emergency throttle lever. A small switch that helps both engines work together had been left off. One missed switch. One tiny thing. One overlooked detail. But it was enough to break everything. The plane struggled to rise. Evan fought the controls. Dan searched for a way to save them. But they were running out of time. And gravity doesn't negotiate. The airplane lifted barely above the ground. It climbed only a little. But 20 feet above the ground, the left engine died completely. The plane tilted. People screamed. Evan shouted commands. Captain Dan pulled on the controls with all his strength. His jaw clenched. His eyes locked on the horizon. He had saved planes before. He had survived emergencies. He had written manuals about moments like this. He tried. He truly tried. But even the best pilots in the world cannot save a plane built on a mistake they never knew about.
Somebody do something.
The plane hit the ground, slid, and broke apart. Fire burst from the fuel tanks. Smoke rose into the sky. And in just seconds, Flight 2381 was gone. 30 minutes later, news already reached the families of the plane crash victims quickly. Phones rang. People fell to the floor in shock. In a small Denver home, Captain Dan's wife, Laura Mercer, was in her kitchen early that morning. The house was quiet and warm. She was cooking breakfast and humming to herself, thinking about what she and Dan might do later that day. The phone buzzed on the counter. Laura didn't think anything was wrong. She just wiped her hands on a towel and picked it up. Laura, answering the phone call, muttered, "Hello." There was a pause on the other end. A long, heavy pause. Then a voice she didn't recognize said her name, very gently, as if they were afraid to hurt her. Laura was clueless. The voice on phone then continued, "Mrs. Mercer, there's been an incident." Laura frowned. She didn't understand. Almost immediately, she questioned, "I'm sorry, what do you mean? Is Dan okay?" Another pause. This one felt even longer. The voice on the phone spoke again. Soft, slow, careful. "There was an emergency this morning. Your husband, he didn't make it." Laura froze. Her whole body went still, like time had suddenly stopped. The spoon slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a loud clatter. Her breath caught in her throat. Her heart felt like it was tearing open. The phone shook in her hand, then slipped from her fingers and landed beside the spoon. Laura put both hands on the counter, trying to stay standing, but her legs felt weak, like they couldn't hold her anymore. Tears filled her eyes. She couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. She could only stare forward, unbelieving, hoping this was a dream. Just an hour earlier, she had kissed her husband, Dan, goodbye and watched him leave for work. Now someone on the phone was telling her he would never come home again, and everything inside her broke. Right there where she laid on the floor with eyes filled with tears, Laura remembered it clearly. Dan was standing in their bedroom, buttoning his long-sleeve white pilot shirt for striped gold epaulets. The sunlight coming through the window made his captain pins shine. He looked calm, like he always did. Steady, strong, ready for another day of flying. Laura watched him with a smile. She loved how serious he was about his job, but also how soft he became when he looked at her. Dan, smiling, had told her, "I'll be home early today. Maybe we can cook dinner together." Laura had laughed softly, responding, "Only if you don't burn it this time." Dan playfully rolled his eyes. He had walked over and gave her a warm, gentle kiss on the forehead. He smelled like soap and aftershave, the same way he always did when he left for work. He had picked up his black pilot bag, then paused by the door, saying, "Love you. I'll see you soon." Laura had followed him to the porch. The morning air was cool, and the sky was still dark. She had stood in the doorway and watched him walk to his car. He had turned and waved, that same soft smile on his face. Laura had waved back at him. Unfortunately for her, she had no idea that this tiny, simple goodbye, a wave, a a smile, a soft kiss, would be the last one. Too sad. For months, the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, an independent U.S. government investigative agency responsible for civil transportation accident investigation, studied every piece of the wreckage. They checked the engines. They listened to cockpit recordings. They read maintenance reports. And finally, they found the truth. A single switch, the emergency throttle lever, left disengaged. One small mistake, one moment of human error. The two words no grieving family ever wants to hear. Something so tiny had destroyed so many lives. Laura attended every hearing, every briefing, every painful retelling of the moment her husband fought for his last breath. She listened as experts explained how one small mistake had rewritten the lives of dozens of families. She listened to every explanation, even when it hurt. And when they showed the cockpit footage, when she saw Dan steadying the controls with every last ounce of strength, when she heard the audio of her husband fighting to save the plane, she cried in a way only a broken heart can cry. The memory of that very morning Dan had waved her goodbye with a promise to return home early to join her to make dinner kept playing and replaying in her head. In tears, she muttered to herself, "Only if I had realized it was our final goodbye." Sometimes the moments we think are ordinary are the ones we remember forever. And for Laura, that goodbye stayed frozen in her heart, a picture she would hold on to for the rest of her life. Some disasters are loud, sudden, raging, impossible to ignore. Others begin quietly, with something as small as a light blinking on a panel, disguised under routine, hidden behind years of experience. Captain Daniel Mercer didn't die because he wasn't careful. He didn't die because he wasn't skilled. He died because sometimes all it takes is one forgotten switch, one misinterpreted signal, one moment of human frailty. He died climbing into the cockpit of the life he devoted himself to. A cockpit he loved, a sky he respected, and the world lost a man who believed in doing everything right. But even those who do everything right can still be failed by the things they trust. Captain Daniel Mercer was a good man who trusted his training, his team, and his airplane. But sometimes, the smallest mistake, made by someone else, can still take everything away. Captain Daniel Mercer died doing what he loved. Flying, protecting others, trying until his last second. The mountains stood still. The sky kept moving. And life, as always, went on. But for the families left behind, the sadness stayed. A reminder that life is delicate. And sometimes, the tiniest switch can change everything.